Welcome to part 3 of ex7b SpongeBob database insert.
What we're going to do is we're going to display it. So we're going to make a variable for result that is actually going to take our results, and then we're going to have to put them in a table, and that takes a little more work, but we've already done that with our other file here. So we're going to make a result one. So now we have the insert. Now we just have to basically display it, and that's going to be a variable that basically just equals selecting everything. So what we're going to do here, we'll just call this display SQL. Just like this is insert, this is going to be display, because this will be a variable that represents one of our SQL statements. So this one's a display, and if you remember, we could even type this in. Remember, it's going to be select all, and it's from characters. And that's all we're really going to do there, is we're just going to use that. So this is going to equal that statement. So it's going to display basically everything that we have. And then I'll put a semicolon at the end of this. Even though the SQL sometimes have semicolons, we're going to use our PHP semicolon at the end of this. So this display basically equals that. So then we're going to run another mySQLi, just like we have up here. And we'll put this here, and we're going to run a separate one. This is a separate query. And instead of this one, we're going to put this display SQL, and we're going to put it down here. So it's kind of two parts to this. One is we're inserting into, this one is then we're going to basically make a query that's going to select everything. So we're going to select everything. Now we still have to figure out how to display it in a table, which we kind of know how to do. But this probably, if we tried it now, it probably wouldn't do anything, because nothing would really happen. It's just being selected. It's not being displayed anywhere. But the last part of this, but that's what we actually want to do there. So we are running a query, which is actually doing a select query, because we need to display everything. So that's what's going to happen here. Now we have to come up, we're going to do something with the result. So let's check how that result works. And what that's going to be is, if we go down to the mySQLi things at the very bottom, we're going to look for the one that has the array, the fetch array. We're going to look at this one. It says fetches a result row as an associative numeric array, or both. So let's just take a look at this. And we're actually going to put this in when we do it in a while loop. So we're going to have to get a result first. So here's our result. And what we can actually do here, you can see what it's doing. It's saying this part up here, if you just look at this for a second, this is the select. We just did a select, and they have a variable that equals a select, and that's what we did. And they're saying the result is going to equal the mySQLi query pulling from there. So we have to do that. So let's go back and do that. So we don't necessarily need this or die in this part here. So we could take this out. But what we are going to do is we're going to say this. We're going to say result equals is going to equal to that, to what we get from that. So then this is how we're going to display a result. So we're kind of taking this variable now and moving it on as well. Each time we're kind of making a variable and moving it on. So this one doesn't have a variable. That one just basically does the insert. But this one is, we've made a variable that equals the SQL statement, and then we're getting the result from the query that's using the SQL statement, if that makes any sense. So we're going to have to take that result now, and if we go back to here, to this array, you can see they use result. You can see they're using result right here. So we're going to have to use this, and they're using result here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy this. They have a numeric and they have associative. It shouldn't really matter which one you do, but I'm just going to copy this for now. And it has that row equals, and we'll just take a look at this. I'll tab this over, and it has row equals, and we don't need this. If you look at the description of it, it says this is optional, so we don't need that. We're just going to do that. And what we're also going to do is we're going to do this as a loop, because we're going to do it for each time for each row. So we're going to have to put this in a loop. and we're going to say while. It's a while loop, and we're going to put the whole thing in parentheses, which means you're going to have like kind of double parentheses at the end here. So this whole thing is going to, so while this is happening, while we're getting results in a single row, then something's going to have to happen. So while this is happening, we're basically going to display something. So we're going to have to get rid of this, and what we're going to do is we're going to put an opening curly bracket and then a closing curly bracket, and then everything's going to happen in this while loop. And what's going to happen is we're going to actually go to display A from our last exercise, and we're going to scroll down, and we're going to basically take this echo part, not the first part because those were the headings, just the second part here. We're going to copy all this, and it has our 4 things there, and I'm going to go back to display B, and I'm going to put this in here. And so basically it's going to make a row. It's going to say first, last, species, gender, and then if we want, we can also put our ID in there. So what we're going to have to do here is we're going to have to get rid of, we're not going to be using these variables, so I'm going to get rid of these $signs. And we're actually kind of, because it's an array, we have to specify the array. So we're going to basically do our variable, which is row. So we're going to put row here, and then we're going to put square brackets around this, and then we're also going to have to put this in single quote. So it's going to look something like that. It's because it's an array, it's not really an index number of the array, it's actually the name of that part of the array. So we're going to do something like that. So what I'll do here is rather than trying to update each one, I'll just copy and paste this, and then we'll just put last, and then here this will be species, and this one will be gender. Now we can also do a first one here. This one's going to be ID, and then we're going to do a last one here. Now remember, because this is what we're displaying, even though we didn't insert it, we're going to be displaying it, and this one is going to be city. And you want to make sure you're spelling them and using the case just like we're doing in here. So if you look at your database, it's lowercase ID, lowercase, everything's lowercase. So everything is just as our column names are. So everything there looks okay. And remember, this is basically one row, and the while loop is going to keep, as long as you keep getting results, it's going to keep generating rows. So that's how it's going to generate kind of our whole database of things that we see. Now it's not putting the headings in right now. We could add them in, but we want to see if this works first. So we're going to see if this works, and I'm just going to put a semicolon at the end here of what we just did, and then we have a closed connection that's just another one put at the end. So we're going to see how this works. So I'm going to save this, and it may not, but that's why we're trying it out. And we may use this part, so I'm going to keep display A open, but I'm going to go back here, and I'll just go back, and I'll refresh it, and we'll add somebody else. I'm not sure if I don't have Larry Lobster in here, I don't think. So I have fake people in here, but I'll throw Larry Lobster in here, and he is a lobster, and he's male, and I'll see if he gets added to the database. And look at that, he got added to the database. There he is. If I browse here, there's Larry Lobster added to our database. Here he's added to our database, and we're displaying the database. So this is exactly what we want. So that's actually working. So what we did here actually worked. It's not the easiest thing to figure it out, and and even in W3 Schools, it doesn't tell you exactly how to figure it out with the table cells. We just kind of worked on that. Although one thing it did show here is it shows this, where you see this the fetch array that we're using for the associative. It does show you here, even though we're not using this kind of stuff here, we're not making new line and all that kind of stuff here. It is showing row, and it's showing in square brackets last name, and here's row and then age. Now this is, we're doing it as a table, an HTML table. It's not using an HTML table here, but you could see what it's doing. It's using the array name, and then it's putting basically the index, not a number, but actually the named element out of there. We can do other things. We could add a number of rows. We could do all kinds of things once we get this going. And what I'll do here before we take a break, we can go to display A, and we could put the headings here. And I'll just copy these. Remember, it's just another row above it, but we don't want it in the while loop. So I don't want to put it in here in the while loop. I'm actually going to put it before the while loop. I'm going to hit return here and put our headings here, and so that it actually, you know, goes through and does that before it does the while loop. And I actually have first name, last name, species, gender, and I'll add 2 more. And notice it's using the th tag. So we're going to do one before and then one at the end. And now remember, this is just text, so we could put ID with a capital ID like that, and then we could put city with a capital. So these aren't variable names, these aren't column names, these are just headings that we're having there. We may have to format these a little bit different, but let's just save this, and we'll go back here, and I'll hit my back button, and I'll refresh it, and I'll put in Susie Squid. We need some females in here. Maybe that's, I'll put Susie Squid. I was going to put Squidward. Maybe that's his sister or something. And she's an octopus because that's what Squidward is. And she's female. So we'll add Susie Squidward. And let's see what this looks like. There's Susie Squidward. That came out fine. And she's ID 110, except this is like centered, I think, by default over these. So if you'd want to fix those, I think we already did that in display A. I think we had a style here. So I could copy this style, this particular one for the TH, and copy this that had a different font family and had a text align left. I don't think we need font weight because I think it makes it bold anyway, but it won't hurt anything to put that in here. And actually see if you can figure out why it didn't work. It's because the style that's in for this page is not on the display B page. So that style's not carrying over. So I got to cut this out of here because there's no TH on this particular page. It's on display B. So I'll save that one. And display B needs that style. So it needs to be up here under table. So that's why that didn't work. And now it should work. And we could try adding one more. And then I'll just hit back. And we'll go with a Lucy. I'm trying to think of something under C. Lucy Lobster. And she's a lobster. Maybe that's Larry's sister. And she's female. We'll hit submit. And there's Lucy Lobster. And unfortunately, we have 2 Susies there. And I'm not sure if we deleted it, if we went to our original database and deleted it, if that would take it out. We could try that. Now it's going to mess up our numbering system. Let's go here to browse. And I think it will mess up our number system, but if we wanted to delete her, we could check this one and delete. And I think it'll just skip her number and kind of skip over her number. So that should be okay. So when we go back, it should update it again without the double Susie. But I think we're going to stop here because I think we're pretty good with what we have. We'll probably do one more video just to kind of wrap up some things if we have to, but that's pretty good so far of what we have. And that's definitely what we intended to do. We wanted to be able to insert things into our database. So here's all our, if you want to take a look at this code here, you know, this is what we have. If you need to take a look at it and stop your video, look at the first part. You know, the first part are all the, you know, we inserted, we created a variable that represent the insert, and then we kind of ran the query using the insert, and then we made a variable that represented the select, and then we ran a query that represented the select, and then we saved that as another variable called result so that we could print out our results. And here we printed out the results. There's our result that's getting printed out with this fetch array, and we're putting it into these table rows here, table rows, table cells, and we even put headers above here. A lot going on here. It's certainly not easy, and it's certainly not real simple, but if you get it to work, then it's kind of easier to troubleshoot and see what you have wrong. And you know, once you do this, then you can kind of build on that a little bit. So if you wanted to create something that deleted something, you can actually create something that deletes it. But we're gonna stop here. So again, there's the code of the tables, and keep in mind it has that little closed connection after it. And here's the code of those. So you see that. So we're gonna make sure everything's saved here. And that's part 3 of exercise 7b.